Assalamu alaikum and welcome to KFtalks, where we aim to represent Muslim sisters from varying communities. We will delve into their struggles and aspirations in the Western world and how they serve Lady Fatima, peace be upon her, in all they do. This podcast aims to provide a safe platform for us to delve into and voice our thoughts on issues that may not usually be readily and openly discussed in our communities. My name is Fatima Aghaie and I am your host today. With mental health conditions being on the rise, as we are witnessing case after case, one of which conditions are self-harm, we hope to address and acknowledge self-harm and further aspects surrounding it. Joining me now is our dear guest, Faria Fatima, who is soon to specialize in mental health herself. She teaches business and higher education. Faria Fatima is 25 years old, psychologist in the making, and wishes to major in mental health. Faria is originally from Pakistan, and she went through a period of self-harm which stemmed from inward direct anger during her mid-teens. It went on for roughly 2 to 3 years, after which only one compassionate reaction from a close relative of hers made her stop immediately, whilst nothing had helped her over the years. She hasn't relapsed since and is constantly working on healthier emotional outlets. Started her career studies in this field as well, in the hope that she can help people better their emotional outlets too. Furthermore, around the same time, she rediscovered her faith, which also had a big role to play on making her mental health healthier and more wholesome. Assalamu alaikum, dear Faria Fatima.
Alaikum salam. Thank you so much for having me.
Our utmost pleasure. Thank you for joining us today. Can first and foremost I begin with asking you how you would define self-harm?
Right. So when you ask me about self-harm, of course, at this point in time, I think about it from a professional point of view as well, since I am in the field of mental health. So self-harm, and I won't be that descriptive about it because it can be triggering for people who are going through it to listen to something that is descriptive or very vivid of self-harm. So self-harm is basically any sort of physical harm to yourself or to your body that you voluntarily inflict upon yourself, is done in many sort of ways, which again I won't mention because it can be triggering. And often self-harm is misunderstood, and it is misunderstood because people think that, oh, this person's just doing it to attract attention, or their faith isn't that strong, or they're not mentally strong enough. So it's misunderstood for a lot of reasons, which is why it gets brushed under the carpet, and also people don't always find out if a loved one or if a family member or a friend is going through self-harm because it's misunderstood, so nobody really talks about it, and also because it's pretty easy to hide as well, in terms of, let's say, scars or whatever it is. It can be easier to hide, which is why it's not really talked about. So yes, it is generally just anything that is physically inflicting pain upon yourself.
Thank you very much for that. Speaking from personal experience, when did you first begin to experience self-harm?
It's a very interesting question because when I started it, or when I first experienced it, I didn't actually know that it was self-harm. And it started off as a very normal, random thing that perhaps kids in their teens, one of the random things that kids in their teens probably do. And it started out very mildly, and I honestly didn't know that this was self-harm. I just did it because a friend of mine showed it to me, and I was like, oh, sounds cool. At that time, at that age, back when I was around 14, I thought, oh, okay, something cool. But I didn't realize that it created that network in my mind to use this as an anger outlet. And when I started, I honestly didn't know that this was self-harm, and that just even finding out about it once can make me or anyone go into that cycle of using this as an anger outlet. And initially, obviously, like I said, it wasn't an anger outlet at all. It was just something that I found cool, or, oh, something new, you know. So yes, so that's how it happened. But then I realized that, oh, if I get angry and if I do this, I feel better. So, which is the typical thinking of any compulsive mental health issue, where you do something and it makes you feel better, mentally or emotionally, and you continue to do something that is mentally or physically harmful for yourself. Right? You continue to go into that cycle round and round and round. So before I realized, it had become a habit already. And initially, of course, it was fairly easier to hide, and it wasn't, well, as it progressed, it became difficult to hide. So I guess just that sentence might make you understand how much it had progressed. Until people actually started seeing it is when I realized, oh, I think there's something wrong here.
Amazing. I mean, not amazing that you went through this, but it's very interesting, as you said, the cycle of normalizing it and using that as an outlet of anger. Because I mean, who at the time told us that this is something that isn't healthy, and it's something that is just a cycle? There isn't really a stop to it. So you tended, I guess, you just normalized it in your head that this is the way to relieve some anger and stress. And so if this is the right way, I want to continue. And then you continued. Speaking of which, how did you realize, or how did you come to a stop? Did you seek help from anywhere or anyone, and how did that go?
Um, Interesting question, because now that I think back to it, I think if anyone was in my place and if I was a spectator who'd found out about this, I would have asked myself, or whoever that found out was doing self-harm, to do approach a professional help. But at that time, again, like I said, we don't, because we misunderstand it, and because no one talks about it. I honestly didn't know that this was an issue. um People, of course, if people saw it, they'd be like, oh, what are you doing, this is wrong, please stop. But that's it. You know, no one actually said anything or did anything after that. Family and friends tried to force me to stop. But of course, when something becomes a compulsive habit like that, you do need professional help. And again, because our communities don't talk about it, our families are not aware of it, we don't know what to do if we see something like that, which just spirals the problem out of control, because nobody knows what to do. The person who's going through it doesn't know what to do. The people who are around them don't know what to do either. They try to use stuff like, oh, this is haram and this is wrong and you should stop and this is sinful, but that's not all that helps. At some point in time, you do need a professional help, as for any illness, as for any mental health issue, as for any physical issue. You need a professional's help, right? So when did I realize it was a problem? Coming back to your question, because your question went out of my mind. When did I realize it was a problem? When people, not when people, I would say it became too much, because at that point in time, it became too much for me. And it was damaging me to a point that it was getting too much for me without me knowing that this was an issue per se. It was taking a huge toll on me mentally and physically, and it was becoming way too repetitive. It was consuming my day to day, and any small emotional imbalance or anything that upset me mildly would spiral me out of my emotional control, and I'd be like, oh, I just need to do this in order to feel better. So anything small that upset me would make me do this, is when I realized that this is too much, this is getting out of hand. But again, I didn't know how to stop. So I didn't stop until a close friend of mine saw it, and she actually asked me, like, what is it? Why do you do it? I think you should stop. I think you should do something else when you want to do it. And that is the key thing that professionals use, that do something else when you want to do it. And the thing that we use in mental health would be, for example, you don't ask a person to, okay, just throw away your stuff and don't do it again. You don't do that. You can't do that, because it's a human brain that they've gotten used to this compulsive habit, this compulsive way of living for years. You can't just be like, okay, throw away your stuff and you're done with this. No, it's like any sort of like drugs, for example. You can't just ask someone who's who's used to being under the influence, okay, throw out your stash and you're done with it, right? So the one main thing we as professionals use is that, for example, a rubber band. Wear a rubber band anytime you feel like you just snap the rubber band, and then you get busy in something else, right? Now, me saying this is pretty quick in turn. It's in therapy, it's a gradual process, but that's that one person said that one thing, that do something else when you want to do this, and that just clicked in my mind, and I was like, oh, I can try doing something else. And then slowly and gradually that habit got out of me, and I started, every time I wanted to do it, I would just get busy and, let's say, the internet, just open something random and start watching a random video or doing something random, and eventually I got out of that habit.
Alhamdulillah, and mashallah, it is very indeed essential that whoever is listening to this and whoever is going through a mental health condition, be it self-harm or others, especially mental health, we shouldn't, if we are in the habit of doing something, we shouldn't, just like you said beautifully, come out of it straight away. That is not what professionals tell us, and neither should friends tell us, family, anyone. Just snap out of it. It's very easy to hear friends or aunties or uncles, they look at you and think, come on, just snap out of it, as if it's a button, you know, we can click and just choose to snap out of it. And it likewise goes with, you reminded me of antidepressants. When someone is taking antidepressants who is going through a mental health condition, the doctor always tells the patient, do not leave the antidepressants just suddenly. First of all, you need to be on it minimum 5 to 6 months. And then when you do leave it, you leave it gradually, because what tends to happen is that it's actually, there's a very high chance of relapsing straight after if you leave it straight away. So just like you said, if you had just, not that it's easy to, but if you had just left it straight away, it's almost impossible, because yeah, you might have controlled yourself straight after, but the following day you would have probably gone back to it, if not quite more aggressively as well. So yeah, thank you for highlighting that. What coping mechanisms have you used, or have they helped? I know you said you used the internet, for example. Is there any other tools or mechanisms you used, be it faith or not faith, that helps you really come out of it? I know it's easy to say, I just went on the internet and put on a video, but is there anything else that is more, that strikes you, that could be used for other people?
In terms of coping mechanisms, I talk about what I personally used. Excuse me. Well, my first and foremost thing was just, honestly speaking, social media, because it was the quickest thing that I could grasp to change that nagging thought in my head. So that was the first thing. Of course, it's not, we all know how not healthy social media is, but because as a first, as just that first thing to snap me out of it, not again, I won't say snap me out of it, but just that first thing to distract me was social media or the internet or YouTube, because as soon as I felt that thought, I would immediately, and this is what that friend of mine also recommended, just go on the computer, just do something to take this out of your mind. And the friend isn't,
it's quick and it's easy to get hold of, so yeah, no, I completely understand.
So again, this friend isn't a mental health professional, but it just, I guess God just helped me in that sense, that he made this person say the exact thing that I needed. And so I would just go on social media, just watch something random, anything that distracted me for the moment, until the thought was out of my head. And I kept repeating this every time. That's one of the things that I remember doing. If anything else that recommended me, that I did, what we as professionals recommend for coping mechanisms is, again, when you taper it off slowly, one is something, yes, distract yourself with something, perhaps cold showers, warm showers, a shower, a walk. A rubber band snapping often releases that tension that you have building up inside, that's wanting you to self-harm, we as professionals would tell our patients, wear rubber band, snap it if you feel it, just distract yourself somehow. Often patients start digging their nails into their hands. Again, this is something that releases that physical tension that you felt will release only after you self-harm. Now, again, these mechanisms slowly dissipate over time as well. You don't always see people sitting with a rubber band and snapping it, right? You don't see that in general in people. But again, these are mechanisms that I would recommend to people to, if they are going through self-harm, or if they see someone going through self-harm, these are mechanisms that will taper it off. Like you said, for example, for antidepressants, they need to be tapered off. Any sort of compulsive issue like this needs to be tapered off. So that is, I told you what I used. The ones that I would recommend others to use if they want to use social media, go ahead and use social media. Go ahead and take a shower. Go ahead, go take a walk. If it's freezing outside, again, that might clear your mind out, right? Drawing, painting, anything that will just distract you, right? Text a friend, call a family member, talk to them about something senseless, and it'll distract you, right? So yeah.
And you tend to find yourself as well. It's like you try all these different things, whether it's drawing or writing or going for walks, exercising, calling relatives. You don't only just use them as a coping mechanism, but it's also some sort of self-awareness as well. You get time to maybe reflect, you get time to think. I know it's distraction from the initial thoughts that you have, for example, of self-harm, but you also tend to create this new activity, or let's say hobby. So it's sometimes it opens different doors, we don't know.
Yeah, exactly. You might discover new talents that you thought you didn't have.
Yeah, exactly. How do you think we should raise awareness in the community about this issue specifically? I know the community, I mean, they are trying, I do see they are trying, but it is still a slow and a gradual step there. Hopefully we still want, for example, on minbars, on pulpits, to be, you know, to have these mentioned. Where still I don't really hear lots of mental health talks being mentioned in pulpits. But is there anything else you think we should do to move forward with this?
Well, of course, podcasts, like you guys are doing an amazing job with these podcasts on mental health. Again, in our communities, yes, it's not that often paid attention to, and especially something as I'm not sure what word to use for self-harm, but something as brushed under the carpet as self-harm. Again, when you mention it, a lot of people kind of just like backtrack and go like, oh, what is that? Or, oh my goodness, that's so wrong, right? So again, for something like that, we do need scholars to mention and highlight mental health issues, and not specifically highlight them as a lack of faith, or that only faith will heal you. Yes, faith will keep you on track, but sometimes you need a professional to heal you. You do need a professional to sometimes step in and tell you that you need to do this just to get out of this. So we need that acceptance in our communities, that it's okay to go to a professional when things get out of hand, or before things get out of hand. You don't need to wait for things to get out of hand and then go to a professional. So yes, raise awareness in general from the pulpits during majalis about mental health issues, and the acceptance of going to professionals, and the acceptance of talking about mental health issues amongst us. Perhaps, let's say, workshops or discussions or question answer sessions with, let's say, professionals in the field that are also part of the community. I think all of that will really help highlight issues that are, let's say, self-harm is a very sensitive issue, where people find it difficult to talk about if they're experiencing themselves, and people find it difficult to listen to if someone vividly comes and tells you that I do exactly this, this, and this. It will be difficult for the other person to hear it as well, right? Because it's something that's, to be honest, painful. So it's painful to listen to, it's painful to do it, it's painful to see someone do it as well. So we need that general acceptance amongst ourselves that this does happen, but we also need to find out ways to stop it.
Yeah, definitely. And there are many different religious ways of helping the community actually come out of it in a healthy manner, instead of the stigma that's surrounded mental health, or discouraging people to even, sometimes they think, let's not speak about it so we don't trigger it and we don't normalize it. But hey, it exists just like physical health conditions exist, mental health conditions exist. And the more they raise awareness, I guess, the more acceptance is built, and the more it becomes normal. Not that we want it to be normal, not that we want anyone to go through these conditions, but it's important that people accept it and people normalize it in the community. I definitely agree. Speaking of religion, I know I mentioned earlier about you, since you let us know that it was religion that also helped you come out of it. Is there anything specific from faith itself that helped you come out of it? Was there a specific story or a hadith or a ayah from the Quran that made you reflect, or is there anything about faith that really kind of inspired you to for help?
The time that I stopped or was in the process of stopping self-harm, or when I stopped self-harm, is also when I kind of rediscovered my faith and got into wanting to learn more about it. So that was almost towards the end of my teenage years when I kind of realized I want to learn more about this and myself, not just because I was raised as a Shia, as a Muslim, but because I want to learn myself about this. So again, it wasn't just faith that stopped me, it was that coming over it gradually that stopped me. Again, for any issue like that, it is, you need that mental health professional to gradually make you go over it, make you come out of it, right? And then you have things like your family, your friends, your faith that helps you stay on track. So for me, my faith helped me stay on track. It gave me that new identity, that I wanted. And that was around the same time that I started, let's say, helping at mosque, or volunteering, or getting involved in the community, getting to know more people in the community, finding out more about different topics in Islam or about the Ahlul Bayt, and listening to different majalis. I think I ran a marathon for a few months listening to majalis. I haven't ever run a marathon like that, but I literally was back to back listening to one and the other and the other and the other. And I just got really interested in it at that point in time. And that gave me that new sense of identity, which I believe has stopped me from relapsing. So it's just that I did have points in time where I thought of relapsing, but alhamdulillah, I never relapsed since then. It's been close to 10 years and I haven't relapsed. But I believe that just that religious identity that I got from relating to my Shia community, or by relating to the Ahlul Bayt, is what kept me on track and stopped me from ever relapsing. Because even when I did think about relapsing, I would just go like that, no, how will I go to majalis if I fall back into this dark hole? How am I going to volunteer if that thought keeps nagging in my head? I can't do any of these things that I've gotten into now if I go back down that track. And that always kept me on track. And then slowly, I think I haven't really thought of relapsing ever since then. So it helped me stay on that track that I needed to stay on.
Alhamdulillah, honestly, it's a real inspiration. I know we mentioned earlier that sometimes, it opens new opportunities, it opens doors for you. It was strengthening your faith, coming to awareness with your faith further, and that's beautiful. I mean, I know it must have been a very difficult, and it must have been a challenging experience you went through, but alhamdulillah, it left you nothing but stronger, and it left you stronger in faith particularly, and that's the most important thing. Is there anyone from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, or is there anyone from the characters that we know of as a Shia community that you, I wouldn't say resemble with, but who is your go-to kind of? Was that of any help?
Well, now that I reflect back on it, I think I really connect with Hazrat Abbas. And I don't know when I realized that I really connect with him, but it just instantly clicks in my mind. I don't know what it is about his personality that it just clicks in my mind. And I think when I started discovering faith again, and when I started listening more about him, and when I started visiting Karbala, it's just that connection that I have with him. I don't know. I can't really explain it in words, but he's my go-to. If anything bothers me, whatever it is, he's my go-to.
Alhamdulillah, and it is helpful, is it?
It is, because anything that bothers me, I just sit down and I talk to him. I sit down and talk to him, and anything that bothers me, I just talk to him, and I instantly feel better.
SubhanAllah, and they do hear us. They are there. We have in the Quran who they are indeed not dead, actually. They are ahya, and Allah yurzaqun. So, they are there. They do hear us. We tend to forget that because they are not physically there in front of us, including Imam al-Mahdi, may Allah hasten his reappearance. He does listen to us and he does reply to us. So we just need to, we need to put that into our minds more so that we do actually use them as a go-to, because from experience as well, it is very helpful to really empty ourselves to the imams, and to the present imam himself. He does reply, he does listen, and he does help. He just needs he who calls out to him, after all. Thank you so much, Faria. Is there anything, last, just an advice you would tell to anyone who is hearing? I'm sure those who did hear, it was a very helpful session. Inshallah, they did find it very useful, as much as I did. But is there anything you'd like to advise anyone who's listening and going through a mental health condition, be it self-harm or anything else?
Like you said, connect with our imams. I would just advise people that connect with these personalities, and it's, of course, there are conditions that you need a professional for, but you connect with these personalities and you ask them to give you that way out, and they will give you that way out, whether that way out is in terms of a professional or a friend or a family member or a new opportunity. Whatever it is, they will give you that way out. And just connect with them, and they'll give you what you need, what you really need, without you knowing what you need. So yeah, that's what I would like.
Inshallah. Thank you so much once again, Faria Fatima. It was lovely having you. It was lovely hearing from you, and inshallah we will hear from you in the future more. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you for listening in. Tune in next week's episode on motherhood with Sister Kauthar Hakimi.